Okay then, welcome back. I know it's been a while again. Bit of a different point of view today. Normally you'll see me in my point of view, hence the 20 or 30 odd videos where it's literally POV, POV, POV. But I've got my GoPro attached to my phone mount, which is a pretty ideal situation because it means I don't have to buy a new GoPro mount just for that. A GoPro mount just for the sole purpose of recording, because I've already got one that fits, so that's good. As you can read, if you can read, that is, I'm not the best at it, but I can get away with the odd big word. But you can read the title, and you could probably look at the thumbnail and put something together in your head and figure out what this video is about. Basically just going to go over my experience and first time ownership of a, I'm going to air quote it because I know some people will say differently, a performance car. I do class this M140i as a performance car because essentially it's a baby M car. It's all the power of an M car without the handling. So essentially, if anything, it's harder to drive. Don't quote me on that one. But you haven't got the LSD, you haven't got the control arms, you haven't got the bracing, none of that. So it's essentially a bit more of a raw feel, even though I am driving automatic. You know what I mean, you know what I'm getting at. So it's a first time performance car guide / what to expect if you're coming from just a low powered, you know, your A to B car like I did. My first car was a Vauxhall Corsa 1.2 naturally aspirated beast. Now I loved that car. It never let me down. It only went into limp mode once in 3 years, and I absolutely annihilated that thing. I drove that thing harder than I drive this. Just redlining everywhere, you know what I mean? But it was looked after, despite saying that. I cleaned it. I didn't service it myself because I didn't really care for the car, which I probably should have done, because then I would have had a better idea on how to service cars now that I'm into them. But you can never, if me grandma had bollocks, she'd be my granddad, you know what I mean? You can't really change any of that. But with that being said, one of the main things I'll say about owning a performance car, and I'll show some cinematics in between as well, and I'm going to pull up and explain with content or with like video clips of what I mean. So first things first, the power, obviously. That's the main reason you'll get a car like this, or a car, any car above 250 brake I would class as performance, especially in a hot hatch, like a little compact car. Maybe not so much if you've got like a massive boat that's only got 250 brake, because then if the car weighs 2 ton and it's got 250, it's not really, that performance to weight ratio isn't really there. Whereas with this thing, it weighs just under 1500 kilos, about 1700 with me in it. But no, I'm only joking, I'm not that heavy. However, it's relatively light, and you've got nearly 400 brake. Now I say nearly because I don't know if this thing already has a map on it from when I bought it, because it keeps up with a lot of stuff with a lot more power. So even if it's not 400, my estimate is like 370, 380. It's definitely not 330 like the like BMW say. So when you've got something like that much power, especially going to just the back end, you've got to know what you're doing, or you will find out very quickly that you don't know what you're doing. So there's been a few times where I've almost span out, but that was because it was piss wet through. I had budget tyres on, and I was sending it just a little bit too hard around the corner. Just right foot was just a little bit too heavy, and the angle and everything. So I've never, fingers crossed I never do with any of my cars, but touch the lucky duck, I've not crashed this thing, and I don't intend to. Now I beg that I don't crash it now that I've said that. But this thing, I've had this for nearly a year now. In fact, it's a year and 2 weeks that I've owned this thing, so by the time you see this video it'll probably be like a week, but either way, I know I'm rambling again, but the performance is one of the main things that you have to get used to and you have to be aware of. Now, you could just stick this thing into comfort and it's just an ordinary BMW 1 Series for all you know, but when you're in anything like Sports Plus or traction mode, or when you've kicked it into manual and you're changing gears yourself, you know about it, and it's quick. So performance is the main thing you have to get used to, and unfortunately you will get used to the power relatively quickly. Like, for the first 2 weeks I'd shit myself every time I went in it. I'd worry about if I was gonna get caught speeding, even though I was barely speeding because of that one reason. But still, you have to be prepared for that much power and get used to it. But you will get used to it fairly quickly, which is kind of, it's good and bad, because then you know that the car, you know how to drive the car at that point, so you're comfortable with it. But at the same time, it's like you just want more and more power, because you want that new car feeling, or that first time you get in a powerful car, you want that again. Because I can still remember going to the place where I bought this, picking it up, getting on the motorway, putting my foot down and being like, oh my god, I love this thing, it's so quick. And I'm like, I'll never get used to this, I'll never get used to this. A month later I'm like, well, used to it. And when you're taking people out in cars that don't or aren't used to going really quick, you'll notice they'll be like grabbing onto the Jesus wheel and everything, the Jesus handle, like shitting themselves, being like, oh my god, this is so quick. And you're just like, you know what I mean? It's just like, you're just completely used to it at that point, which is fine. But like you say, you'll get used to the power, but that's not good or bad, it just is what it is. Now, the second thing I'll say about these cars, especially if you've got a rear wheel drive car, which I'm guessing you're interested in if you're watching this car on a 140, the tyres, if you put the power down all the time, you are going to chew through tyres. And do not skimp on your back tyres. You can go mid to low end. I wouldn't go low end anyway, like budgets. I would never go budgets on a car like this because of stopping power. Like, you need good front tyres if you're going to want to stop on time, because if your tyres don't grip, your brakes aren't going to do anything, because your wheels are just going to be skidded. So maybe get mid-range on the front, because they don't really do anything except for steer and brake. But the backs, I'd highly recommend, if you want to use that power and you don't want to spin out in the wet, get some Goodyear Eagle F1s or some Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's, something along them lines, maybe some Cup 2s. Get something like that on the back end, because you're gonna need it. Which this leads me into my sort of second part, which is sort of the same sort of point, is maintenance and costs of running. So the cost of running this thing, petrol wise, I don't know if you can see on this camera, but that middle whatever it's called, armrest, is just filled with receipts from V-Power, Shell, Morrison's when I filled it up there. Fuel in the UK is expensive at the minute anyway, but high performance fuel, which is what you're probably going to want to put in at least every couple of fills to, you know, get the most out of your car. When you're putting 99 in, you'll get that extra 5% horsepower increase. So let's say your car is 400 brake, you put 95 in it and it's running 380 because of it, or 360 because of it. That's a big difference. So it's worth putting the extra fuel in, and it's better for it now that everything's E10 as standard. So the V-Power is still E5, so it'll look after your engine and you'll get more brake horsepower out of it and better performance, which is what you want. So filling up this thing, I'll probably fill it up once every 10 days at least. Like, that's if I drive it to the gym, back to my girlfriend's house, back to the shops. That's not including like going on a big run or filming YouTube videos, for example. It all costs, and it costs me on average probably £60 to fill. It's a bit more now. I put 70 quid in the other day and I was like, oh my god, it hurt putting that much in, because it doesn't last that long. Like, I might get 400 miles if it's pure motorway, but the amount of time town driving and just little short stops I do, I never get anywhere close to that. I might be lucky to get 280 miles out of a tank, so I'm filling up most weeks. So that, plus the tyres, the petrol, and cost of servicing, because you will need to service this car a lot more than your little runarounds. One, because of how much hammer these cars get. Two, because you want to make sure you're looking after the components, the engine, the turbo, making sure you change your oil every 5,000 to 8,000 miles at least, especially the oil filter on these cars, because they do tend to disintegrate, and that could cost you 10 grand for a new engine. So when you've got an engine that is worth more than most people's cars, just service it. Pay that extra money. It's 100% worth it. It hurts at the time, because my first service for this, it was a big service as well, so it was like quite a few things done. It cost me 758 quid from BMW, and I was like, oh my god, I was expecting 300 quid for this service, and then they were like, oh yeah, it's the big one, you need this, this and this, and I was like, okay, fuck's sake, better get making some YouTube videos. So servicing, definitely watch out for that, because it will come to bite you. They say that if you can't afford a new BMW, you can't afford an old BMW, because the service charge doesn't go down with age, just the car does, and the chances of it breaking down the older it is obviously increase. So all in all, I've probably spent, not including mods I've done to the car, like lowering it, diffusers, exhaust, everything like that, not including mods. So if you just want a bog standard run around M140i, you're probably looking, with fuel obviously and tyres, let's say you change your tyres once every 6 months. Now you might be more, might be less, depends how many burnouts and donuts you do, you know, all that. So you want to make sure that you are, well, no, I'm going off track here. Basically what I'm saying is, it costs you at least 3 to 5 grand a year to run one of these cars. So be prepared for that. If you're having to save up 4 years to buy this car, you probably can't afford to run it safely without skinning yourself. So I'd say you need to be able to afford 25% of the car's value for the year. Obviously it depends what car you get in and all this and that, and if you look after it, but I've spent about 5 grand on this car so far in a year. Money well spent, because I absolutely love it, and I love meeting everyone at car meets. They're all sound, you get the odd knobhead, but you know, that's life, isn't it? But be prepared for that. And another thing I'm gonna say is parking this car, right, is a nightmare. Not because it's big, not because it's wide. I've got parking sensors, I know how to drive, I know how to park. That's not the issue. It's everyone else that doesn't know how to park. And if I'm in the work van, or when I was in my old Corsa, I'd leave that thing anywhere, or I'll leave it anywhere and not care about it, and no one will touch the car because it's a Corsa or whatever it is. But whenever I park this thing, it's like everyone wants to park next to me, and no one knows how to park or drive properly. And so it's just a nightmare, because as you guys have seen in previous videos, or if you don't know, if you are new to this channel, firstly, subscribe, secondly, follow my Instagram, and thirdly, go watch my videos, because you'll realise what I'm talking about. The dint that some very nice human being left me right over there on the above the wheel on the left side, that's gonna cost me like 100 to 250 quid to get it fixed, and I didn't do that. So they dinted the body panel, the fender, and they just left a nice little black mark where their paint had rubbed off on mine. So I was buzzing about that. I absolutely love that. So thank you to whoever did that. You can fuck off. But yeah, people don't know how to park. So what you end up doing is, I'll show you in a minute, you'll park as far away as possible. Let's say you're going to the shops, you'll park a million miles away from the entrance. You'll go at not peak times. You'll park, maybe if you're a dickhead, or you know that people are dickheads around you, you'll park in 2 spots. Or what I tend to do is, if there's no like big space, or like a parent toddler, which I also go in, what I'll do is I'll find somewhere next to a curb, so there's only 1 parking space next to me, and I'll park right up next to the curb, to the point where I'm almost annihilating my alloy. That's what I'll do to try and avoid people hitting my car. So get used to that. That's something that not a lot of people talk about when they get new cars, is the fact that when you come to park in this thing, people just love to park next to you, and people love to bang their door off you. And I don't know whether that's out of stupidity or jealousy, because they're driving a banger and you're driving a nice car, especially if you're a young lad like me. I'm 23, and the amount of dirty looks I've got from old people usually driving bangers is unreal. Like, obviously I see folk driving the same car as me, give them the nod, because I know, I respect, they respect me, it's all good. But yeah, get used to those 3 things. The main things that you have to get used to is paying through the nose for petrol, paying more often for petrol, tyres, servicing, and idiots trying to harm and damage your car. Now, especially if you're a see you next Tuesday driver, you will get people remembering your number plate. Now for me, it's really easy to remember my number plate. It's 5 letters, but if you've got like a bog standard number plate, you'll be okay. Now, with that being said as well, this is not really related to the video, and I'm going to show you my car outside. Hopefully this video hasn't rambled on for too long. I'll probably just edit a few bits out, or just keep it raw if it's been alright. I haven't really stuttered, so we're all good. I'll show you the front of my car now. It's looking nice, a lot better than it did. The back end looks the same as when I was last in this car park. But yeah, so what was I gonna say? What was I gonna say? It's completely left me. It's left me. But anyway, I'll show you the front of the car. Oh yeah, if you drive like you see you next Tuesday and they remember your plate, they will come with a vengeance to try and attack you and like hit your car just because they don't like you. But that's not really car related, that's just in general people being dickheads. So I'll quickly pull you off. That's where you've been mounted, by the way. Oh god, this is an 18-minute video. Still got my lucky duck, of course. Now then, I will get out, quick rev as well. You love to hear it. I'll show you the front now as well, of course. It's changed a bit. So, right there we've got the black eyelids, the black canards which have been wrapped, and my front plate is different now as well, because before, if you can remember, I had like these horrible number plate holes there. Look at the amount of bugs on it. Got the holes where they were drilled before, and I had a shorter plate, so I had holes sticking out, and it just looked horrendous. So I was like, for fuck's sake, I have to get that fixed. That's the car, that's how it's looking now. That's the dint I was on about. And I've got a cracked windscreen as well, which is lovely. Other than that, it's clean as well. Not much has changed. It's mainly been on the front. What the fuck is going on here? What? Didn't hear that. Fuck you. But yeah, I'll get back in the car. And I think, hopefully you can see me. We'll end it here. So it's a 20-minute video, I know, I'm sorry. I doubt any of you are probably even watching. There we go. But if you have enjoyed the video, please give it a like, give it a comment. I know that I got a lot of dislikes on that last video, which was because it was mildly clickbait, but it was still a crash anyway. So with that being said, if you did enjoy it, please like, consider subscribing. If you don't like me, you can always unsubscribe, but it's free, and I really want to hit 1,000 subscribers. I'm trying to hit 5,000 Instagram followers as well. Currently on like 3,500, so if I could get to 5,000 by the end of the year, that'd be great. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed. The main sum up of this video is, insurance as well, but I think I'll get into another one of them. Insurance is a bastard. So insurance is expensive, petrol is expensive, maintenance and tires is expensive, people are trying to attack your car, which if you want to get it fixed is expensive. So owning a performance car is not cheap, but it's worth it. With that being said, that's all I've got to say. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Leave any comments that you think I should do other videos on, and if you've got to this point, 1, you should probably get a life, and 2, duck's arsehole. Comment that. Comment duck's arsehole, and I'll know you've watched the whole video, or I'll know that you've watched the last 20 seconds of it. Either way, I'm rambling, so peace.